walking home.
graduation present?
No, he's just a sophomore.
Real
But,
world things here.
No? Oh, okay. No, he'll be junior
I just
next
for
year,
some
yeah.
reason thought that was in
City
June that they
Council?
were gonna do this sampling.
See on the sign.
Internet?
Oh, happy birthday.
Oh, VCB guest probably.
Probably Lincoln City Council. I think there's a note out here somewhere.
Sure.
We're gonna do the budget.
Hearing first? Okay.
Oh, here's all my stuff. I was missing a few articles. I had to unload the box when I first got here. So.
Ooh, all the folders. All the good things.
Budget hearing for Devil's Lake Water Improvement District for the fiscal year 2019-2020. We'll have Josh present the budget as presented and prepared, and then ask for any comments from the audience and go from there. After the budget hearing, we'll go ahead and carry on our regular monthly meeting of the Devil's Lake Water Improvement District, their normal monthly business meeting. Josh?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving your time up on a wonderful, beautiful Thursday night with all the excellent weather we've had. Tonight, we're going to go through the few brief changes from the Budget Committee meeting, and then take some public comment and see if we have any further discussion on the budget hearing, and hopefully approve the budget and move on to the board meeting. So let's get started here. There were a few grammatical errors out of the Budget Committee meeting. They were on pages 5, 6, 7, and 9. Since they're just grammar, I'm not going to call them over and take the time to go over them. Page 4 had a revision. The budget hearing date in the appropriations area was changed to the correct date of June 13th. Originally, it was June 14th. There's a typo. Page 5, we have the detailed budget, line 3 down at the bottom of the page. Change the wording to reviewed statements, and I believe before it said audited values or something to that effect. So this just makes the wording a little bit more accurate in our budget, and that was a comment that came out of our committee meeting as well. And also, our lake level management line item was supposed to be budgeted at $6,000. However, in the budget review version, we were at $5,000. I changed that in the concurrent LB forms to reflect the $6,000 in that contract. And with that, that was the list of comments that I had from the Budget Committee meeting.
Have any comments from the board? Thanks, Josh.
Sure.
Do we have any comments from the audience? Yes.
Good evening. My name's Susan Waukee, and I'm a member of the Budget Committee, but I was unable to attend this year's Budget Committee meeting since I'm also on the City Budget Committee, and we had
Amazing.
meetings at the same night. I want to thank you for correcting the grammatical errors and the date changes, and I think that the reviewed statements makes a lot more sense than the other wording. I understand you changed the budget amount of the lake level management to 6,000 from 5,000. However, I found one other discrepancy, and that is on page 8. The narrative says that the contracting is budgeted at $9,469, and that's the way it was in the draft. But on LB 31, line 4, it is 9,495. So the number on the form is different than in the narrative. And I don't know if that was discussed at the budget hearing. Since it wasn't recorded, I wasn't able to hear it.
We didn't catch that, Susan,
Okay.
so.
What
So-
page was that in the narrative, Susan?
Well, in the narrative, it's on page 8, and that's the same as the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sure didn't catch that.
So I don't know if there was a reason to round it up to 495 instead of 469.
No, that's just an oversight. I will check with SDA rules, but I believe that will fall under a threshold that we don't actually have to make the changes since you was so close. But
Yeah.
I will double check and make sure. Thank you for
Okay,
grabbing that.
sure. And my other question was, I don't think the LB1 was with the draft.
The LB1 doesn't come out until after tonight because the budget hasn't officially been approved yet, so the form's not complete
Okay.
in the columns until after this evening.
And I assume that those increases, so it would be $1,027, I think. Did that come out of unappropriated ending balance? Is that where the money came from?
It didn't come out of the UFB, it came out of the residual general fund.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. General fund, residual. Thank you very much.
No
Thank you
problem.
Thank you for
Thank
catching
you for
that.
hearing.
Thank you,
Imagine
Susan.
you going over the city budget.
Yeah.
I
Thank
feel
you.
better
Make sure
knowing
you're at
you
the
are.
committee meeting next year, Susan.
Those meetings take a lot more hours than yours.
Well, and we appreciate
lot more
you-
zeros in
yeah,
those
We
meetings.
appreciate you serving on this committee with your
Definitely.
lives
I
for 2
appreciate
years
the
in a row, right?
opportunity.
Many years.
Many years.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any other comments from the audience? Those present? Okay. With that, I will read our resolution for adopting the budget for the Board of Directors for 2019 and 20. For some reason, okay, yeah, we're okay. I was looking at Board of Directors resolves 2019-01 resolution adopting the budget. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District hereby adopts the budget for the fiscal year 2019-2020 in the sum of $982,274, now on file at the district offices located at the Oregon Coast Community College at 3788 Southeast High School Drive in Lincoln City, Oregon, dated this 13th day of June 2019. Resolution making appropriations. Be it resolved, the Board of Directors of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District hereby appropriates the following monies for the fiscal year 2019-2020 for the amounts and purposes shown below. Personnel services, $137,300. Materials and services, $142,547. District operations, $9,031. Interfund transfers of $20,000. Not allocated in organizational unit or program contingencies of $5,000 and transfers of $0, making the total appropriated funds of $313,878. Improvement fund transfers, $6,531. Transportation fund, capital outlay of $0. Transfers of $20,000. Total all appropriated funds of $313,878. Total unappropriated and reserve funds of $668,396 for a total adopted budget of $982,274. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District hereby imposes the taxes provided in the adopted budget at a rate of .2499 per thousand of assessed value for property taxes within the inside boundary, and at a rate of .1280 per thousand of assessed value for properties in the outside boundary of the, and that these taxes are hereby imposed and categorized for the tax year 2019-2020 on all taxable properties within the district. Categorization of tax. General government limitation. The general fund inside boundary of .2499 per $1,000. General fund outside the boundary of .1280 per $1,000. Exclusion of limitation not applicable. Transfer of improvement fund to general fund. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District hereby transfers $6,531 from the improvement fund to transfers to the general fund held for future expenditures. Transfer from the general fund to the transportation fund. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District hereby transfers $20,000 from the general fund, transfers to the transportation fund held for future expenditures for the purposes of pre-funding the eventual replacement of the district's watercraft. Do I hear a second?
Has there been a motion?
That's our motion to adopt the budget as stated in the resolution 2019-01.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Be it resolved that the Devils Lake Water Improvement District adopts the budget for the budget year, fiscal year 2019-2020 for the sum of $982,274. Great, thank you. Now we have money to operate next year. And Josh, you're going to submit all the appropriate paperwork and such for...
Correct. Everything's been submitted as far as our public meetings notices, and the News Guard just hasn't given me the proof yet, so that's why it's not in the packet this evening.
And it looks like Steve and I need to sign this resolution prior to leaving today. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Great. With that, do we have any further discussion from the board or the audience? With that, the budget hearing is now recessed. I'd like to call to order the normal monthly meeting of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District, June 13th, 2019. Let the record show that all directors are present in attendance. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda for the this board meeting?
Make a motion to approve this consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion from board members? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Excuse me. Let the record show that the consent agenda has been approved by the board. Do I have any sign-ups for public comments on agenda or non-agenda items prior to our monthly meeting. Did we get any sign-ups back there, Josh? Do we know?
2.
Oh, Miles, we'll just call you up.
Miles Schlesinger, Lincoln City, Oregon. I have talked to Bill Sexton about it and Steve Brown, but I'd like the board to be involved in getting gasoline on the lake for after Noel Walker retires in September. And I think it is critical for the hospitality industry to have the lake functioning like it has for 30 years. And I, not only for myself, but for recreational users who come over from the valley, it is important to have gas available for filling up their motorboats. So I'd like to see some real effort done on that so that we can have a modern gas pump, which Knowles is not, functioning next summer. Thank you.
Before you leave, Miles, I haven't been over to Knowles to see if he has fuel this year. Does he have fuel this year or not?
He has fuel and will continue to sell fuel as long as he operates his business, but he is planning on closing and selling all his rental craft and selling all of the property so that he can have a retirement before he's gone also, and I think it's deserved, but I am concerned for the lake and not only the residents, but the people who use the lake, and I know that it could be used more for more events, and I don't want that the lake doesn't have gasoline available for it, and so we've got to put on our thinking caps and do the job so that we can have a modern, and Knowles is far from a modern up-to-date system that could be legal today that they would allow. He is grandfathered in because he's been there for 30 years.
Thank you. Were there any other comments from the audience before we get started? Larry?
Larry Rich, 4590 Northeast Loop Drive. As you know, we had some major rain events this spring that brought a tremendous amount of sediment into Thompson, or down Thompson Creek and into the lake. And it didn't just end there, because now when we get a south wind, it picks up the sediment off the bottom of the lake and pushes it back up the canal again. So anyway, I just don't want this to fade away. I'm hoping that we can find out. I mean, I think it's obvious to many of us that it's a logging company up in the watershed someplace that didn't do something right. And I think we need to find out who it is and hold them accountable and not just let it go away. That's all I got.
All right. Hey, I think Josh has followed up on that and continues to do so. Is that correct?
Correct. Met with Katie Jacobson this week and had a brief conversation with her to bring her up to speed on what's going on. I'll also be meeting with Dave Waltz here very soon. He's definitely expressed some interest, and I think I briefed in the last board meeting about being able to potentially get some state resources involved in Thompson as a project. So
I did some checking around to the logging practices and talked to some people in the valley about that and what's required. And the short answer I got is that it's very possible that they did do everything that they were supposed to do by permit, and it's very difficult in those type of things to track it too far.
Yeah.
Because so many things can change, you know, just by the very fact of, you know, the way water runs once the timber is gone.
Yeah.
And the permit requires that you keep that sediment in there, but it can affect what happens below that,
Yeah.
and that they're not responsible for.
I gotcha. So the flow of the water itself, regardless of what's coming up there, it's
Right,
not
as
coming
long
from
as
up
they
here, but the
contain
water
it in
itself
the
is-
patch that they're taking care of.
is faster because of.
But
Okay.
what happens below that, it changes the topography below that too,
Gotcha.
because of the speed of the water and so on and so forth. So the moral of the story is I agree with Larry that I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what it was.
Yeah.
I was hopeful that we would be able to identify that fairly easily and if nothing else, use it as a reason to clean up that canal, which that's what I'm still hopeful for. As far as holding somebody actually accountable, I am losing hope for that. Not to pass the buck, but that's just, I think, maybe the nature of living in a lake that's a bowl surrounded by hills.
But at least we have the state's ear, and they're following up
Right.
on it. And
Well,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
as we mentioned in the last meeting, if we can use this event as a catalyst to clean up Thompson Creek Canal, or I don't know if that has a canal name other than Thompson Creek Canal, but to clean up that canal, if we can use this event to start that would be beneficial.
Well, for sure. I mean, it's proof positive that there's large amounts of sediment coming into our lake through these tributaries, and you know that's definitely echoed by the fact that the Dee River and we have the Pacific Ocean actually thrown in there. So
Yeah, we
we
get
have
hit from all directions.
everywhere. So absolutely, I agree.
thanks, Larry, for keeping that in the forefront of our thoughts, even though it's summertime and we don't see any. Apparently, you have also noticed when we end up with this south wind that whatever was brought into the lake and went out into the lake now is coming back during these wind events too. So, all right, thank you. All right, I think now we're looking at committee reports. The first on our agenda is our sewer committee. I believe we have Brian Green, chairman of that committee, here today.
This one's on, right? Yeah, okay. Hello, board members.
Hello?
Good to see y'all.
Good to see you too, Brian.
So sorry for the lateness of it, but I did get a proposed resolution for dissolution of the sewer committee out to you day before yesterday. My main idea was to, you know, when you're looking at when you hear about a resolution to dissolve the sewer committee, it can easily sound like the district is giving up on sewering the lake, and so I wanted to capture the idea that the accurate and correct idea that I know you're not, and but that you want to approach it a little differently. So that was the main thrust of the resolution, and I hope you've had a chance to review it, and maybe you'd like to discuss it, or have suggestions, or changes, or proposals, or alterations, or questions.
Brian, I know that it did not come across in my email, so I was unable to take a look at the actual resolution. I have an idea, since I've been to committee meetings and stuff, I have an idea of what's taking place, but I actually did not see the resolution itself. I looked for it and couldn't get it.
I got the draft of the resolution. I don't know if something else was sent out. I didn't get anything else.
Yeah, well, there's only, that's it. I mean, I hate to, you know, I think it could be a final, but I don't want to call it a final without other people's approval, so.
Brian, I had a chance to look at it, and I have to agree with your comments. I think you conveyed precisely that the board still has an interest, and I think in your recitals you stated that, and I can tell you I also liked in the recitals that the citizen committee, whatever that is, would report back to this board. And I think that shows a good partnership that we'll still have, and it shows that this board, anything that is for the betterment of the lake, we're for. So I did like that also. The only one comment that I did have was, I guess, the succession, your recital F. It kind of confused me. It says, whereas the board expects to receive a final report from the committee. So I guess what I think we were expecting, or not really expecting, but my thought is that we would get the final report and have time with this draft, which you did send it out to us a couple days ago. Therefore, F in your recital wouldn't need to be there, because I think the order is to get your final report to the board in enough time prior to a meeting so that we can look at the report and then have your final draft of the resolution, and we could vote on that resolution at the same time. And I think that your committee members have expressed some interest in the final report. They're looking for it too. Looking at a chain of emails, I know a couple people wanted to have a final sewer committee report, or meeting, I should say. No, I think this is wonderful. For those board members who haven't read it, he put a lot of effort into it on both sides.
Well, yeah, I've kind of got, I understand the problem. I had delayed, I've just been, had a lot on my plate about the last 3 months, work-wise. Contrary to popular opinion, I do spend quite a bit of time.
I thought you were in Mexico on the beach.
That was months ago. Or a couple months ago, anyway. And when I got back, I was swamped and just did not have time to get to this. And I think you were actually expecting it a couple of months ago. So the way I got the cart before the horse was to say that here's your resolution, and then as part of the resolution saying that the board will provide a final report, and upon submission of the final report, then the committee is dissolved.
Right.
And if you and it makes sense, I think, to do it the way you're suggesting. Let's just get the final report done, and then
have your
then you can have a resolution before you to dissolve the
Well,
committee.
and I don't know that we have to have another meeting. I know I read a couple comments from other committee members that said, you know, I don't think we need to get together. I mean, I'm happy to get together, but I think if you want to send out a report to the committee members and people can reply to it, I think
No,
that's
it
adequate.
just as a courtesy, I wanted to say, if you want to have a meeting
Sure.
to discuss the content of a final report, we can do that. Otherwise, I can just draft one, circulate it, and maybe people would want a meeting to discuss it, or make individual suggestions about,
Sure.
and circulate that.
Which to me makes more
Sounds
sense
more and more
than
like we're
sitting
having
around a table.
some kind of meeting without having a meeting, but, yeah, so, okay, so what I'm gathering from a couple of the comments is that we will put the resolution on hold, get a report done, send out the report, and once the report, I don't know that we're asking you to approve a report. We're just going to give you a report of
Right.
what we think should constitute a final report. And once we've provided that, then we'll also provide a resolution along these lines. And
I think
and
the
then you can-
resolution's perfect. I don't see any changes that need made in it.
No, I don't
Okay.
either. I thank you for the time you put into it. For me, I'm not an attorney, but, you covered your intent in here in the recitals, and.
I thought you
kept
would
it-
see those whereas in your,
Well, and I think it was really both sides.
gone-
That's what I
he's
like.
gone legal mumbo jumbo on us again, but they serve an important
Not
purpose.
sending us
You
a
want to
bill
have
on
kind of
it.
a predicate and set a tone, and that you really do, we're going forward with the project, but just in a little different way.
Well, and I think this is good that it is more of a legal document. If we are going to move forward with a community committee or whatever, a citizen committee, I'm assuming we're going to have lots of documents to present to different jurisdictions and so on and so forth to form a district. So, it makes sense to me that it's more formal than not.
It'll be a lot easier than, well, that's why I couldn't resist reciting all the formal requirements we have to meet, just because so far we've been a public body.
Right.
So, and it will make things much easier. And I think that it's a good approach.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay, I get it.
Brian.
We'll get a report done.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
your time,
much.
Brian. Appreciate it.
Let's see. Next up, special projects, events and communication. Tom?
And a good evening to the board. My name is Tom Rice. I represent the Special Projects, Events, and Communications Committee. And I just wanted to provide an update on our next event, which is our boating safety clinic that will be held next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but Saturday the 22nd at Regatta Park from 11 until 1. And one of our committee members, Georgia Roloff, did a great job putting together an informational announcement, which will run in the News Guard. It is also on Oregon Coast today, and I'm told it has been running a radio ad as well for informing the public. As I mentioned last meeting, we got a lot of very nice informative literature from the Oregon State Marine Board, what we'll have available to pass out. And our two representatives of Lincoln County Sheriff's Department be the same fellows we had last year. They're very approachable, very friendly, very knowledgeable, and they'll be providing courtesy inspections for people that like to have their boat inspected. And we want to stress that if your boat is not up to standards, you will not be cited. So there's no downside to this. You'll just learn what you need to do to meet requirements for your watercraft. So we're anticipating a good turnout and hopefully good weather, and we'll look forward to having a good time. And that's about it. Any questions?
And then following we have a lake cleanup, is that correct too? That'll happen before, is that right? After
That's the 5th of July.
Yeah, the lake cleanup's after the 4th of July.
Right.
Yes, and that is a committee function, you're right. We have committee members, based on where they reside around the lake, have offered to patrol that area of the lake after the after the big fireworks event, just to pick up any fireworks-related debris. Odds are we'll probably pick up more general public related debris, but we'll still pick it up. So that's another committee function.
I just wanted to remind it because our meeting is like the 13th of July. We have a meeting after that scheduled event also. So.
Okay, yeah, so that would come up between now and then. Very good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment too. Thanks to you and your wife for bringing over the packets to the fireworks fundraiser. You know, we had our neighborhood association had fireworks fundraiser, hot dog feed, whatever you want to call it, and yeah, nice packets delivered by Tom and Sherry, and a lot of people really enjoyed that packet. You know, had a free whistle, had a wristband, and just thanks the good job that the Special Projects Committee is getting all of this literature and education. You're putting it in one simple packet that different events, those can be handed out to the public, and I just think it's a great outreach. Thank you.
Well, good, and we had debated whether to put the packets together again for the safety clinic or to have individual pamphlets, and I think we'll go ahead and put the packets together. Everything's there, and people can grab one. They'll know they have everything. My favorite document in the packet is the paddleboard requirements. We live on the lake every day. I see people who are not operating legally on stand-up paddleboards, and they need to know. So that'll be good. Oh, are you?
I'm one of those.
You okay?
Well, the interesting.
So I just read in the news this afternoon that the legislature is passing statewide small vessel new requirements. I didn't get to read the whole article, but.
Okay,
course
well,
not.
we'll stay on top of
Just
that.
kidding.
Well, and I was going to say, too, you know how literature is with adults, right? We'll
Yeah.
kind of walk past it like this because it's more, and I couldn't believe how many kids wanted to take one of those because of the whistle and
Yeah.
the bracelet.
Yeah.
And so whether or not the parents wanted the packet, you know, of course, the kids came home with the packet, and hopefully they're reading the literature in it.
It's a cool whistle. Got the Oregon State Marine Board name embossed on it. It's nice.
Yeah, cool.
So I think we got 100 of everything. So we should have plenty of volume.
Good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Let's see. Next up, Save Our Shoreline Water Quality Monitoring Committee. Mary Ellen.
Right, the committee met at 3 o'clock at OLCC, and we were in one room, and then we moved again, but it was very easy. We had an update on the Cub Scout Pack 47 Devil's Lake Floating Garden Project. I talked to Jed Fly at Oregon Coast Bank, and he said that they're coming close to getting the pricing down. It looks like it's going to be $160 for a 4x8 and $90 for a 4x4. And they're going to call the 9 people that they have signed up toward the end of this month and ask them to pay so that they have the money to buy the supplies to build in July. So if you want to get another one in there, you might be able to squeeze in another one. Their goal is 15, so they have 9 to build, and then if they get the other 6 and can't get the more than 9 done, they'll do them in August. So, and they're going to have the baskets in them, and I don't think they're going to put the plants in, but the baskets will be there. I'm not sure about that part. Do you remember if they were going to put the?
I wasn't at that meeting. I can't
They
recall.
talked about both, I think, and I know when I talked to Dr. Weary about ordering one, he said, do you want it with the plants or without?
So it wasn't decided yet, okay.
They weren't
Well,
really
maybe they're doing 2 prices. Maybe they're doing 2
I
prices.
didn't hear 2 prices for each one,
Yeah.
so
Well, the other
it
thing,
must be with plants.
I think that we could provide getting plants free. I think we could. There's a property that's available, I think, that they've offered to get plants there.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
So it shouldn't be a problem, and the plants are growing right in the water, so they'll convert into the floating garden well. I'll skip down to the bottom. He also mentioned that they're going to have a speaker, a master gardener, to speak to the pack on aquaponics related to the floating garden. So I said, I want to come. So I invited myself to them. And if it's a really good presentation, we might do that as a workshop in March. because we were going to do a Western Pond Turtle survey training, how to survey for Western Pond Turtles, but we think we need to do that sooner than next March. So we want to do that this summer. So Josh is going to call Susan Barnes at ODF&W, right? ODF&W, and line up a survey for us, survey training for us. Josh will talk about the water quality update, which is all green, I hear. We talked about the shoreline restoration projects, and Kent's going to draft people to come and dig plants and plant them for these 3 sites. Can't quite reach the 3rd site, but the 2 are pretty much ready to go. And I think that's it. Let me make sure I didn't. So the money will be collected the end of June, and the floating gardens will be built in July. So try to get your money in. If he hasn't called you, I just dropped my check off for a 4x4 on the way to the meeting. So he's got that to start. I said, start buying the stuff. Here's a check. So that's going to be good. And if they can reach their goal of 15 this summer, maybe we can have them set another one, you know, for next year. And it'll be nice because that'll mean we'll have 18 on the lake. That's good.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. District operations and projects. Josh?
All right. The Devil's Lake Conservation Aeration Project has been going along swimmingly, not to be too much of a pun, but the water looks great out there. The clarity is extremely high, 5 or 6 feet of water. It's super clear all the way to the bottom. I'm not seeing any signs of any free-floating algae that we have even in the past couple years, even when it's not been problematic, but just its normal background concentration. It seems much lower or just not present this year in comparison. In addition, the water chemistry that we're pulling up with the EXO is outstanding. Now, granted, I looked last year at the records, and that's about as far as we go because we just procured that equipment a year and a half or so ago. But at this time last year was when the DO started dropping on the bottom of the lake. So we're watching it extra closely right now. It has not yet. This week we just went out about 2 days ago, and it was still 100. I mean, extremely high. Even in the part where you can get down and you know, the turbidity shoots up because you can see that on the meter as well. So very good sign there. So we're watching it. We hope that holds out. Our real trial wildfire is going to be here through the August season when typically we have the worst problems, the warmest water and the lowest flow. So we'll keep looking and keep reporting. The bacterial sampling has also been great. It seems to be lower this year, marginally of course, and that can fluctuate. But in particular around Rock Creek, which is our major tributary, it seems to be lower, a lower concentration of bacteria coming down than there was last year. Coliforms seem to be about the same, but the E. coli itself seems to be reduced. So we're in very good shape there. So far, we've completed 3 weeks of sampling, I think, Alex, and we're all under threshold on the lowest threshold, so no issues. Even in the Dee River, a couple weeks ago, I know there was an article in, I think it was the News Guard or something like that, and it kind of read to the fact that the Dee River wayside was, you know, had E. coli overages, and it definitely did not on our side. I believe that was done by the Surfrider Foundation, which does it every year. They do it on the beach side of the 101 bridge there, and in particular there are quite a few shorebirds and things that go out there, and they will even say that, you know, during their sampling that can be an issue. But our side of the lake during the Dee River during that period was all in the green. We did not have an exceedance at the Dee River. So, yeah. We are still working on the video monitoring project. I do not have any updates this week. We discussed briefly during our management review that we would take a look at a couple other spots, so I'm chasing that down this next couple of weeks to see if we can get something at Sandpoint and maybe up farther north of Knoll's property, since that's not going to be so much of an option for us anymore.
No, Josh, I was thinking of another place, like more commercial places around the lake, and oh shoot, he just left. But what about Pier Point 18?
That's definitely a possibility. What about internet connection is really our biggest thing.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, I'm assuming that each individual unit has their own internet connection.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we could probably, you know, have an internet connection there fairly easily without having to piggyback on somebody else's
Yeah.
data usage, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it would be our own bill every month,
Yeah.
but it is right there.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that about anywhere. I mean, we could do that at Sandpoint. We could do that at Vivian's.
Oh, you can do it other
Yeah,
places
we
where-
can have it somewhere else. I mean, we can do that. We just need to decide if we want to expend that and make that a regular occurrence. And that will be the best option for the functionality of the cameras from what I'm learning from our IT.
Okay.
My idea was talk to B'nai B'rith because I'm sure they have internet connections for all their campers. And it's
Wouldn't have any if they didn't.
and we might be able to do something on their boat dock. I'm not sure, but that's another
It's a
option
long ways
too.
to get down there
Yeah.
from. But yeah, that might be a really good one.
Yeah, I'll put in some calls
And
the
then the
next week. And
hotel in front
Sh-
of Vivian's.
is that what is the name of that one?
The inn?
Yeah,
I don't know what it's called.
yeah. Bill, have you spoke to the managers of that one? I know you'd spoke to one of those hotels over there.
Yeah, no.
Are they pretty agreeable?
Yeah, very agreeable.
I would think a hotel would really like it. I mean,
Okay.
because it's basically their own private webcam if we let them access the footage as well.
I'll look into those. Sure.
No to talk to them too about
The Airstream Pro, we are still dry on that. I spoke with John Tucci. He has the motor ordered. It's being packaged up along with our compressor oil for our lake bottom system to save on shipping, as well as 2 backup diffusers. Those will be shipped to us. They are supposed to be in the mail now-ish. Last I spoke to him, so we should have those very shortly. And I'll get up with Bill and get an estimate and see where it's going to be for repair of the Airstream unit and where we're going to go with that.
Can we have somebody to repair it once the parts get here?
That's what I'm gonna see if that's within Bill's capability and if he wants to get us an estimate. And
Yeah, I've already talked to John about it, and he said it's fairly simple. It's
okay,
just like a smaller Airstream unit, only a bigger motor.
okay,
So
and
the
Bill
only-
has worked on those in the past.
Yeah, I think the only expenditure that we may have is an electrician to hook up the circuitry within the motor itself.
Okay.
So there's a couple of components. The atmospheric air draw is electric, so it has to be wired into the system,
Sure.
along with the motor. So.
Sure. The D River Devil's Lake flood protection. It's one of our biggest projects at the moment that we're working on. We have a few things going on down there right now. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to go check for larval lamprey, ammocetes, on July 17th with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're coming down with their electrofishing boat and some backpack units. Anyone that would like to volunteer, I know a couple of folks already have expressed a lot of interest in that, and I'll get a little more information out on the website in regards to that. And we'll just see if those are out there or not, and then that way we can incorporate that in any future planning for relocation or impacts. I did meet with Kevin Shreve of Civil West this week. He has given me a scope for a stream survey on the Dee River, which will give us a profile 125 feet west of the Dee River Bridge and 300 feet east, where most of the sand deposition and storm debris lie at the moment. From that report and plan, we can get the volumes of the sand and sediment, and we can use that report to form an actual project and permit with the Corps of Engineers and DSL in order to move forward on either digging a channel to keep the flow open there or some larger removal project. But now my thought and what I've been working to and what I understand the board wishes is to have something that's more permanent, that's a maintenance operation, that's not a one-time situation. So we can go out and dig this out every January if we need to, or every July if we need to, and that's what we're working towards at this moment. Part of that is going to be a meeting Monday the 17th with Ken Murphy of Lincoln City, their emergency management coordinator. They just came on a couple months ago. He has a great deal of experience with FEMA on flooding protection. He has reached out to us as well to integrate with the city and part of their emergency management plan. So this will be great for us in the district, since this is definitely a flooding issue in Measure, to be able to bring a little more experience into this as well from the city. I do still have to set a meeting with Lincoln City Public Works. I have not done that yet, to discuss some of the log and woody debris removal down at the D River area. That's definitely causing more buildup of sand and sediment in the area. Has been navigational issues, has destroyed property this past year alone. We've had major issues with it. I do have a estimate right now from a contractor to remove the logs. I'm going to have a meeting with the city first to see if we can have some shared responsibility, because in the district myself, I've been receiving lots of phone calls, more than 3, from people concerned about the debris in the 1st and 2nd Street canals. And being that it is city property, is not the lake, and is a lot more expensive to be able to do that, and access becomes a major issue for us as an organization. I will be meeting with Lincoln City shortly to see what we can do to clear those canals out, and maybe be a larger project in keeping the logs and debris out, as well as the sand and sediment, which seem to kind of work together to make that lake bottom a lot higher than it should be. Okay.
Josh, I've had 2 excavating contractors contact me in the last week that have gotten wind that we're working on this, that said they will volunteer their trucks and machines.
Okay.
If that is helpful.
Definitely. Part of what we're looking at with a maintenance type permit would be to dig a channel on the south side where it cuts down against those canals and tends to shove a lot of that debris in there, in those canals in particular, and the D River. To keep that open would be a shoreline operation. So instead of trying to block the river and trying to get big equipment down in there, cut the water out, and dig out a large excavation as a one-time project, from the side, we're looking at access points that we can get a large excavator in with a 28 or 30 foot reach and be able to make an appreciable several feet deep channel along that side. So hopefully, as we discussed initially, maybe as it should, some of the material should slough in from the other side as well, especially if we can dig a channel deeper on that side. But that's something that's more palatable, should be more palatable to regulatory agencies, budget as well, because a large excavation, as we know, is very expensive, and there's a lot involved with that. But this, as a maintenance operation, would be more parallel to what we do on the west side of the bridge as it is, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a year we have to do that. So we're really looking for the same solution on the other side of the bridge.
My only concern with that is that we have almost 20 years of material there. So, I mean, the first time it's going to be a fairly big project. If we can keep it a maintenance project, then going forward, it's not. But to get down to where we should be in the natural lake bottom, it's a big project.
Well, and hopefully, if we can get it approved as we would like, we can do this when we need to. So if it's a month and we do a good clearing and it sloughs back in and it's filling back up again, then we can come out again in another month, and then eventually be able to just get that material out and be able to do that on demand, as we should be able to keep that area clear.
Great.
Josh?
Sure.
So that's a lot of information. I'm trying to kind of, so Civil West, let's go back to the meeting with them. So what they are proposing is to develop drawings, or when you met with them, I guess, what's the next step? I'm confused.
It would be a very cursory report, probably a couple-page narrative. Most of it would be drawings and cross-sections to give us the profile of all the soil. The main goal of that would be to survey the entire area out and mark it, including depths of sediment. Previously, on document review, there's been the geology of the area. There's a rock shelf near the dam. And that seems to be one of the issues that's came up. there's no identification to that. No one has any benchmarks set on it. We don't know the actual elevation of it. There's been a few things put out as it might be or not, but no one's ever done that complete profile. So we can kind of estimate on soil what we'd want and what we would want to do, but to put that into a permit, they're going to want something more formal. They're going to want something like a survey.
So what I'm hearing you say then is we need to have Civil West involved in order to complete the permit?
I believe it would strengthen our chance of being able to not only get a permit approved, but get a regular engineering function of clearing that area out approved. Because then we just wouldn't be we wouldn't be estimating the volume of a single event. We'd be estimating the volume down to a geological structure that we plan on removing on a regular basis.
So what did Civil West give you an idea of what that document would cost?
Approximately $7,500 to $8,000, I believe, was the estimate. And that would be the full survey from the 125 feet ocean side of the bridge to 300 feet on the lake side.
Do we have any historical data on, we all know that there's rock underneath the bridge, but going east from that, do we have historical data on what that lake bottom was compromised of, and depths and widths and so on and so forth?
No, that's one of the major things that this will fill in. We don't have a lot of characterization of that side. Now, they did a little bit more characterization up to and about the dam area, and of course over by the bridge, the engineered areas where they did the riprap wall, but we don't have much in this side of the lake, and that's a product of the fact that it's never been impacted this heavily. There's never been that much sediment from the evidence that I've seen.
At least 6 feet deep in the past 40 years.
Yeah.
Because I took swim lessons there.
And now you can't even get to the south side of Vivian's, and it's even in the 3 years or so that I've been the district manager, I've seen a lot more sediment come in there, impacted not only in the river channel but in the canals as well, that entire area.
Well, and wasn't there a boat works there? So, I mean, it had to be deep enough for the breadth of a
Yeah,
boat.
over by Hofstetter, I believe there was, yeah.
Calkins Creek.
Josh, I was just wondering about the 125 feet on the west side of the bridge. What are we looking to look at there? I'm just wondering.
We are wanting to characterize basically the flow of the water and the sand and sediment, what is pushing it. So there are so many natural forces at action there. We've learned that the sand doesn't come straight in. It comes in from north of Kylos and sweeps around,
Right.
which is why initially they wanted that, that other wall over there, and that never came to pass. So that's really what we're trying to characterize as a total picture of where the sand comes from the ocean, because that's where it's coming from. How it's coming over that geological structure and hump, and how much sand and soil and sediment we're going to need to do to influence that flow, which will also paint the future picture for how often we're going to need to keep that down.
So this will give us a survey all the way from there to the drop of the ocean.
Correct.
So we'll know the elevation change and what it should, if it was a perfect world, what the fall should be.
Correct.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Water quality briefing, I believe I briefly went through earlier. It's excellent. The clarity has been the highest. The chemistry has been excellent. The pHs have even been great. They bumped up a little bit this past week, but I think the EXO just needs recalibration. But everything has looked absolutely fantastic out there. All the reports I'm hearing are great. There are a couple things we're keeping an eye on as far as some of the native and or non-native vegetation that may be coming back. I know Kent's keeping me abreast of a few of those things, so I'm going to run out again tomorrow and pull another one, because we've been watching some plants from last year growing in that area, and they've came back. So we just want to make sure that we're on the right track, and please, anyone feel free to let me know, and I can always go grab a sample and take a look at an idea, because if we can get something that's going to be nasty way ahead of time, that's going to be a lot easier for us than letting it go even a few months. So I will definitely go check on any strange plants or green floating goo that you have. So the buoys are out. Thank you very much to our lake contractor for getting those installed. I went out and checked them the other day. Hopefully that makes our lake a little bit safer, especially when people are speeding down the southern part, and find that sand island that's not so readily visible from the water. So we appreciate having those in. John Tucci of Lake Savers will be here late July, August. I called him last week. He still doesn't have a complete date for us. He's on a large project right now in Michigan, but he'll be locking that down for us very shortly. It is on his book, in his agenda, though. He will be coming out here. When he does come out, we're going to check the diffusers. We're going to check the system. We're going to give everything a really good once-over and test and tune and see if there's anything we can improve and any ways we can make our system more efficient at this point. And I believe once the compressor oil and everything in, Bill is going to go and change the oil and the filters and air cleaner and everything on the compressor as well. And it should be in pretty good shape since we've got it in such a nice clean enclosure.
Yes. And we'll also be pulling 2 air stones to check the valves on them, clean them as well.
No update on the Regatta Park vendor food deed restriction removal. We're still looking at July as an ETA for having that removed. And these are non-agenda items. Sorry, I went all the way through everything, didn't I? Somebody stop me.
Nope, keep going.
I like it.
But with the emergency planning, since I'm already doing this,
Do it.
I'm going to meet with Ken Murphy on Monday, and that'll be part of our discussion as well. Because I know we had talked about having a few things out and some ready access to some emergency equipment on the lake for spills and such. So we're going to see how we can, if he's got any good ideas for us on that as well.
Comment, I guess. You know, this Thompson Creek thing just really is sensitive to me because I think that, as Tina had stated, we may never find out, really. And I think last meeting I had expressed that I feel in some type of emergency preparedness that we should come up with something and stop being the victim. You know, right now the lake's a victim of something that we don't know that's happening or that we can hold somebody responsible. So the lake's kind of a victim in these events, and I'd like to get to a point where we stop becoming the victim, and that in case we see sediment coming down, as I expressed last meeting, is there some way we can mitigate it at the entry point to the lake? And because it's important. It's, you know, once the sediment starts coming in, then we're in the same process of dredging to get it out. And I'd like to see something, or, you know, I'm going to suggest this to one of our committees to just actively think about, is there a way, and maybe the Save Our Shoreline Committee, because I know of the intelligence on that committee and the pragmatic thinking people and organized thoughts. Is there a way, is there something this board can do when we have sediment events? You know, waters are always going to come down the path of least resistance. And, you know, Tina, I never really thought about what you said, but if you strip the land of vegetation, you're going to get a lot more volume of water coming down a creek that hasn't had that volume. So it could be there. somewhere it could start sloughing, on the stream and everything. But it seems to me if you really want to solve the problem, you have to have some type of solution or even analyze, is there something that we can affect to stop that so that we're not at future date trying to get a dredging permit and all of this type of stuff.
Well, I
guess
I mean,
comments.
I understand what your concern is, and that is one of the reasons why we contacted Ducks Unlimited, because they're the key, I think. They're the key in trying to design something. They have experience in doing those types of things, and it's a big project to be able to get a system in place where sediment settles out before it comes into the lake. And that was my idea about contacting Ducks Unlimited and what they could provide for us. And that area over there by the radio tower, I know it's held privately and stuff, but those are the kinds of areas where you try to capture those types of things by some design of how Thompson Creek comes into the lake.
And I think that may be a midterm or long-term thing, because we made the contact. I think we're going the right direction. But
They just don't have a lot of money.
yeah,
I'm
well,
telling you.
and I guess I'm opening it up kind of for discussion. We sit here once a month, and for a couple-hour meeting, and I think sometimes it's frustrating that we can't go through enough discussion, and that's why our volunteer committees have really kind of helped sort things out. And I know the people on the SOS committee, they're in Thompson Creek, and I don't know, comments from the board. Does the committee want to just kind of generally think about the idea, can we do something effectively and fairly quickly down the creek?
Yeah. I think, sorry to cut you off. Ever since I got on this board, one of the things that was important to me is that we realized what kind of lake we have and where it's located. And we have 400 plus homes on our lake. We have 3 different main tributaries and then lots of little ones. And then we have the Pacific Ocean within a couple hundred feet, pushing back on us that way. And one of the things that I said from the get-go is that you have to manage this lake for what it is. And if we have septic tanks on the lake, then we have to do things in the water to mitigate if that's an issue. Sewer the lake, treat the water, aerate the water. If we have to get a weed harvester in the lake to deal with vegetation, then we have to do that. And so I think that, yes, it's a great idea to try to mitigate these before they happen. But I also think that we have to realize what we're living in, and just as importantly, if not more importantly, have a plan of action in place for when this happens, that it doesn't get to the point of Dee River, and that Thompson Creek isn't a mud flat.
Exactly.
And other canals, First Street Canal, Third Street Canal, those used to be navigable canals. And I think it's a tragedy that, this community and not to put anybody down, but this board in the past has just let this lake continue to fill up, for lack of a better term, because it's coho habitat, we can't touch it. I don't think that's true. I think it is a challenge. I think you have to figure out how to navigate that. I think Josh and Tom have done an excellent job in going down that. I mean, we, 3 years ago, we kind of threw our hands up in the air and said we can't do anything with Dee River. Well, now it looks like we're going to be able to, 4 years ago, it was going to be $1 million to aerate the bottom of the lake. It was $130,000. So I think for me, I want to keep persevering on when something happens, let's fix it, because this is the type of lake that we live in. It is a bowl. it is always going to have sediment coming in it, and it's not necessarily going to be, they did it, they have to fix it. It's just the nature of this lake,
I
and
think
the
part
more.
of it is maintenance.
Well, the other thing too is, and I think we've done this, is we've put our money where our priorities are. We've done aeration. Now and we think that taking care of the sand buildup at the D River is important. We're putting our energies there. This is another issue.
I think
that-
this should be at the top of the
Yes.
docket, right behind D River.
Absolutely.
It should be the
Well,
next
and we're
most.
seeing more logging. You know,
Yeah,
you
look
know,
at,
the-
look up, look above your place.
My backyard is bald.
I know it.
Yeah,
Yep.
right across the hill from my place, yeah. It's-
So I think we ought to, I think this is a huge priority for the board.
Right.
And.
It is for me, I'll tell you.
It is. I think this affects everything.
But I think it's also more of a long-term plan of knowing that this lake takes maintenance. It takes being taken care of, and it's not something that you can just let nature take its course. It's going to have to be harvested. It's going to have to be aerated. It's going to have to be dredged. It's, whatever it is that we find. I think restoration projects are absolutely part of that. Shoreline projects are, part of that. But I don't think that we can not have a plan for when this stuff. I would like to see us clean up what's happened the last 40 years, and then I'd like to see us be at a point where when something happens, it's not, what do we do? Who
Not
do we call?
catastrophic, yeah.
Well, it's
Where do we go
planning
from
ahead.
here? I would like to know when we have a major sediment come into a canal and affect property owners, we have a plan of action and we put in the plan and it's taken care of. I don't know if that's possible, but that would be my goal.
Well, then, I guess more or less for me, it's high priority as a board member for me that we get that done. In what I'm hearing from the board, it does need to be on our list, Josh, that this emergency plan, and it goes back to what we can effectively do. That's what we want to work on. And, when I didn't really mean to bring the SOS committee in unless you guys, it's the more minds, the more ideas. And
Well, in my mind, it's not an emergency. This isn't an emergency. This has been an ongoing problem for years. It's been brought up this last winter because of several events, but this has been taking place for years. And so with our Devil's Lake plan, I don't know that was addressed. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, but maybe we take a look at that and put that as something that is high priority so that we start addressing it, because these things.
I think it can be addressed in the Devil's Lake plan, and I can't cite it.
Right.
But, it's a water quality issue.
It is.
It's a property management issue. It's a flooding issue. I don't know that we have to have specifically Thompson Creek in there.
No, I think you're right, Tina. I think it goes to our general water quality, and everything down to a bacterial load alone is going to affect our water quality, and there's no question as to whether or not there's bacterial problems in
The
Thompson.
good news is that I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong, is we're not seeing a higher bacteria volume with that sediment that came in.
No, not necessarily.
For the
I think
most part, it's dirt.
Yeah, I think it's just some physical material that's came down.
Okay.
So,
thank you for letting me vent.
That's fine. No, I agree. I think this has been happening for decades. It's been, and it's just come to light because of some events that have taken place this last winter that we were able to at least follow it up to a certain point, and we know it's taking place. Is it going to happen again? Absolutely. How do we address this in a long-term fashion so that as logging takes place in and around our basin, we can if accidents happen or sediments get in the creeks that feed Devil's Lake, how do we take care of that? And I really think Ducks Unlimited is partnering with them is a great way to address this, because I mean, I've talked with Tom extensively about this, and we talked about some ways in which that might work, but it also, it's like, you know, the property owners over there, we're going to need some cooperation and property owners to get involved in this so that we can do something, because it needs to happen before it gets to the lake.
Right, right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Said my piece. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other non-agenda items from the board?
I just wanted to add one thing about our sediment issues, and that we're able to use a small few tools to move water that's been stagnant for years and years. One example is Pat Dooling's Horseshoe Bay. That was a pretty rancid type situation, and within 8 weeks with one little tool, it was totally absorbed by natural process, just by moving water. So that's,
And
I
it's
think,
still good today.
yeah, I think that's our greatest asset, is to be able to use these little tools in these canals to move water and do it without machines in the water, and we don't need chemicals. It's a natural process. Just moving the water with oxygen in it creates the removal of, I wouldn't say muddy sediment, but organic sediment. It's proved so far within our little experiments that it works, and it works with astonishing results.
Well, if anybody's been out on the lake this year, the lake is changed.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's clearer than it's ever been. We're getting some plant growth. We hope it's the right type, but we're getting some plant growth, and that was our goal. So the lake has definitely changed, and we'll just see how far that goes and in what direction and what things we need to do in order to, so it doesn't get in a situation that it was 30 years ago or whatever. And know that the board is, you know, the public needs to know the board is on that, and we're looking at that all the time, and our staff is. So
The property values on the lake this year versus when we got on the board are astonishing. And everybody I've talked to has said, because the lake's clear. And I mean, that's a direct impact to our entire community. And so it's,
Whole county.
well, yeah. And anyhow, it's, I mean, it's nothing but positive from any way you look at it. And I just don't want to, you know, rest on our laurels and say, oh, the lake looks good.
there's a lot more to do.
Yeah.
And we're looking at doing it.
Oh, I know.
Yes. Do we have any other non-agenda items?
The only other thing is I did not get it in, but we need to install our elected board members this evening.
I know that we've done that in the July meeting before. Is that
I spoke with the Board of Elections, and they said by July 1st.
okay?
So I figured we didn't want to have a second meeting before then, so.
No.
Yeah.
You just have to take an oath.
Yes, I think so.
Do we have the oath?
I would hope
Oh, I'm
you'd
sorry.
Have the oath.
Do you have it?
I do not have the oath. I don't think I've ever had the oath.
See if it's on our website.
It's actually in our records in the office. I know it is.
Is it on our website?
I don't know. Josh would know that. I
Give me a minute.
So with that being said, is it reasonable to suggest a newly elected chair?
I got it, Tina.
Oh, good job.
okay, good.
That's fine.
All right.
And, well, here, this one's for you, Kent.
All right, let's see. I, Kent Norris, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, the laws thereof, and will faithfully and honorably demean myself in the office of Devils Lake Water Improvement District Director, to which I have been elected to the best of my ability.
I, Tina French, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, the laws thereof, and will faithfully and honorably demean myself in the office of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District, to which I have been made elected to the best of my ability.
I, Kent Norris. Excuse me. I, Bill Sexton, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, the laws thereof, and will faithfully and honorably demean myself in the office of Devils Lake Water Improvement District, to which I have been elected to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a comment? So at the beginning of next meeting, it's historically we've elected new board chair and officers, and so.
Correct.
Is it okay to do that at the next
Yes,
meeting?
yeah,
do that at the next
as long as we're officially state sworn now, so we're good to go. Yeah.
With that, do we have any other comments from the
We
board?
just got to remember to sign that resolution.
Okay. And then, do we have any further comments from public present? Thank you all for attending, and thank you for all your hard work. We and our staff could not do this without you. So thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Cheers.